longest train I ever did see. Was 100 coaches long. Only one I ever did. Only training now.
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, and I was on a recent excursion up in the Pacific Northwest, and on Monday drove from Eugene all the way down to Sacramento to meet up with the Fishberry Melton. And he's like, "Hey man," he's like, "I got a gig, I got a jam session down in Sausalito with these cats, and I think you might want to come and check this out." And so we drove down there in Barry's car, and sure enough, it's on this place called the Cruisin' Cafe on a boat in Sausalito. I don't think the boat hasn't changed in probably 30 or 40 years, but I had a chance to just see a couple of cats that just blew my mind. Guitarist David Aguilar and the drummer, who's my next guest, is Roy Blumenfeld, a cat whose lineage, goes back, 50 years in Americana music, and really almost an effortless but yet transcendent ability to play the groove and essentially allow tunes like the one we just heard, essentially folk blues ballads, to still swing. His generation was able to do that for a variety of reasons, and we're going to explore that today. But he's had a dynamic career. Most cats know him from the Blues Project, but he hasn't lost anything, and really just a high honor. Roy Blumenfeld, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, thanks, Jake. I appreciate that very much. I want to just clarify the name of the barge. That,
yes, please. Cruisin'.
On Monday. From all around the world, they sail into the harbor, and they visit. They go to the bar, have the restaurant, they listen to music, dance, etc. And the history of that place is pretty amazing. That I found out. But I've been playing there on Monday nights now for I think it's about 5 years. And a guy named Joe Tate runs the Monday jams, where a lot of folks get in who could play fairly well, moderately well, not well, but they get a chance to play and get backed up by some pretty good musicians, I'd say. And that place, at one point, it was a munitions barge, either in the First World War or Second World War, I'm not sure on that, where it would tow munitions to the forces overseas. And then along the way, one story I heard about this, the Sausalito Cruising Club, was that when Bill Evans was kind of hiding out from the IRS in the hills of Sausalito, he'd come down there and there was an upright piano that was there that he would come in and play.
Oh my God, that
Can you
is
imagine that?
no. I
know.
also so it's the Cruising Club, right? Is that what the name of the barge is?
Yeah.
So I just want to say it was the coolest vibe I've ever. One of the coolest vibes I've ever come across. But I mean that. I'm curious about that struck me as obviously it was Barry was coming in on his own. You guys have been asking, or Kat's been asking him to come down and play for a long time, but it almost struck me as like old guard Italian. I mean, the B3 player, all those, the guy on conga drum. I mean, I felt like I was in The Godfather or something.
Well, he, yes, Karen is the sort of the resident conga player, and she comes down. Her son brings her gear down there, and she sits in. And the guy on keyboards was Ruben Valeteria. He is Al Yankovic's music director. He travels around with the band. I think he was on the road for almost 3 or 4 months. But he's a very dynamic musical player. I've really enjoyed playing with him. As a matter of fact, when Dave Aguilar and myself were recording our CD, did you get one, by the way, Jay?
Barry needed to get out of there. He was dying. So I had no chance. I wanted to hang all night, but no, I didn't get anything. I'll come back and see you. I'm coming up again really, really soon, actually. So I'll come see you if you're around.
Love to get you one. But just the story, we're recording a song that was co-written with Stanley Mouse, the poster artist, famous poster artist.
Wow, are you kidding me?
Wow. Guys, and a guy named Bobo, or John Newman, who was quite a terrific, amazing writer, and Dave and myself, we put this tune together called Plutonium Bob, which is a tune about nuclear energy. So it's an interesting tune. And but Ruben was in the area, and he called up. He came over, and he laid down some keyboard parts for us. He was just hell of a fine player. I will say that.
Well, no, yeah. I was actually thinking because the woman that was playing congas was badass. I'm talking about the cat who was sitting directly next to Ruben. Like a very stoic Italian guy. Just had one conga, played like a little bit of would just tap it once in a while. I was like, this was so Frank Pantangeli to me at that point.
Yeah, that's Phil Sausalito. He calls me Sonoma Roy, so I call him Phil.
I love it.
Yeah, that's him, and he's he's an interesting. One second here.
I hear you fine. You're good.
Hey, high tech here.
No, it's fine.
I'm back. Here. Hello.
Yeah, you sound great. You sound good.
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, Phil, I always like people to look at music as an ongoing learning experience along the way. I mean, you could talk to Dave Weckl, an amazing drummer who is constantly learning. To study djembe studies, it'll just bring it all together, with everybody there. But he's been there longer than I have, and Joe Tate really is a guy who had a band. He's running these Monday nights. He's out of town, and I think in Tahiti right now. Having a miserable time, I'm sure.
It's a terrible time. No, but I mean, I want to bring up this thing. Okay, I'm so excited to hang. So we got a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want to put this in for you. Pay attention to the voice and also the content, and then we'll come back and break it down.
Okay. It's a test.
Best you can. Looking back in 71? Was that when that?
Yeah.
What was you were hearing so much different types of music and so much different ethnic music, and it all shines through in that track, even though we didn't get to your favorite part. I mean, talk a little bit about the music scene at that time and what made it so vibrant.
Well, my favorite part, let me just clarify that. I kicked on the wah-wah pedal, so it might not have been everyone else's favorite part, but it was just kind of wild sounding. But anyway,
you know what? I'm going to tell you right now. We're going to get that queued up again later in the show because I need to hear the wah-wah. I need that.
Okay, fine.
Go ahead.
I think you asked me what kind of stuff was I listening to?
Yeah, but I mean also the vibrancy and the accessibility of being able to see all different types of, I don't know where you were living at that time, but the ability to see live music in many different types of environments where you would maybe like you said, like Los Angeles had a vibrant bluegrass scene, but I bet you could see bluegrass at different types of venues. It wasn't like just at, folk festivals. You could see them at restaurants. You could have you could see them. You could see all different types of music in live settings, and I think that was just so unbelievably important. And I was wondering what you were really into at that time, and then what you were putting into C Train, how you were influenced.
Well, I think we were living on the East Coast at that time, and this new kind of jazz was happening. I wish I could remember the names of it was Albert Eiler.
Sure.
This kind of free stuff where they would. It wasn't necessarily changes in melody. It was kind of, and when that thing, so I would go to I can't remember the names of the clubs down in the Village, but I would go to those kind of performances, and then also when we performed as a rock band, there were other rock bands that I would hear. Well, for example, we did a tour with the Mahavishnu
Orchestra.
Whatever that. With Billy Cobham on drums.
Yeah, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, we toured with him. We did 5 or 6 dates with him where we'd open up, then he'd go on stage, and he had an electric violin player, Jerry Goodman, so maybe that was why we were paired together. But what I would do, we would go on first, and then what I would do is I would go in back of the Mahavishnu band and sit within a foot in back of Billy Cobham. Every night I did that.
Oh, this is classic.
Because I'd never experienced. Well, he was like the Scotty Stoneman of the drums.
Exactly. No, exactly.
It was just burning. It was always burned, and the sweat would be flying off. There'd be like cascades of perspiration flying around, and the guy was just absolutely amazing. So that's what I would do for the next 40 minutes. That's one of the.
All right. Well, that was me. Do you have any idea who that was?
Well, when you talked about Billy Cobham, Mahavishnu, it reminded me of a show that the Blues Project, a revamped version of the band, played at Winterland Ballroom, where we were the opening act, and then the Mahavishnu, Billy Cobham and the Mahavishnu Orchestra played, and then Emerson, Lake and Palmer played. That was the three acts on the bill. And I remember the sound check, watching Billy, and his arms were as big as my legs. I mean, in terms of the biceps.
Yeah, right. He's huge, man.
Like a 64th note rolls around the drum set and still slam in the pocket, like. Oh God. Anyway, so, but we did that gig with David Bennett Cohen on keys, Gabriel Meckler. This came up, and I think Tommy Flanders was in it, Willett Lussenden, and I believe Danny Cal was in that version. Of that, and Donnie Kretmar on bass. Anyway, we did our thing. It was pretty much blues-based, very much simpler than, of course, the Billy Cobham band, and also Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And sort of an adjunct to that story was that about 4 months later, I was happening in a Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? So I go in there to get some chicken livers.
I love this. Go ahead.
You got to get. Some folks hate chicken livers; they won't go near them. But I had a certain, you know, it was like
Of course.
must be my hunter instinct. You
Oh
know?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I hunted up some chicken livers there. Anyway, who was in the Kentucky Fried Chicken? Who also lived in Mill Valley was Billy Cobham. So we got our orders. I said, "Excuse me, but you're Billy Cobham, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You know, I opened up for you guys at Winterland, you know, a little while ago, and I just, you know, I thought you guys were great. You know, you played good." He said, "Yeah, I remember you guys. You were bad." That's what he said to me.
Dude, I mean, I can't. Wait, hold on for a second. First of all, they sold chicken livers at one time at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, so
They did,
I mean, and Billy was living. Do you have any date? It was 76. I mean, I never knew that.
Oh.
Billy and I have done about 5 hours of interview. I never knew he lived in Mill Valley.
Yeah, he did. He did for a while. Then I forgot. I thought he moved to Europe. That's what I thought I last heard. But yeah, he did. What year? That would have been 70. Yeah, 70 or so. Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I mean, you know, here's the voice that you heard. Do you want to take a guess at who that was? Because he was a former bandmate of yours.
Well, and there was a touch. You know, it's weird. There was a touch of Mike Bloomfield in there, but he wasn't a bandmate. There was a touch of Bobby Colombi, but where it might have made sense for Blood, Sweat, and Tears for a while to open up for them for the Mahavishnu.
No, this okay. So I'm going to tell you, you're doing a great job because I rest in peace, Michael Bloomfield. Bobby Colombi is actually, I'm getting him on the program this month, but that was the venerable electric fiddler Richard Green.
That was Richard Green.
And that was from my interview. This is how long I've been on this journey, Roy, is that January 2012 I did that interview. So I listened to my own chops as a broadcaster, and I feel very squeamish there. But he was talking about post-Blumenfeld C-Train. You were on that original first album, which is iconic. And,
yeah.
You know, I wanted to ask you specifically. I mean, when I saw you play the other night, there's just a sound that you get off the kit that is remarkable. And I thought to myself, you know, he's not overplaying. There's not like a huge amount of facility. It just feels so good. And I'm like, I have to believe Blumenfeld was marinating at the Village Gate, watching the Free Cats, Clifford Jarvis and Elvin Jones. I was wondering what kind of influences you were having, even though you were playing the Blues Project. Yeah, it's pretty straight blues. I mean, there's some folk in there, there's some psychedelic stuff, but you know, it's not whatever. What was your jazz exposure at that time? Because you had your hand in like 9 different cookie jars.
Well, my professional drumming career started actually. This is pretty amazing. I did my first professional gig when I was 2 years old. I don't know if you do that.
Wait,
Jake,
2 years old? 2 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was.
No,
I
you
was
cannot do
sitting-
that anymore.
No, well, I know, but I was, you know, my parents, my mother was around. It was okay, you know, but it was at home, okay? And I was watching a black and white television, sitting on the floor of the sunroom that we had, and I was watching Gene Krupa on television. So, I mean, I view that as a professional gig because I got paid. Right? It wasn't an amateur gig.
Right.
Okay. Right? I just thought a little tidbit there. Anyway, but seriously, I played clarinet for 3 years when I was younger, until I was about 11, until I couldn't quite master the beginning of Rhapsody in Blue, you know?
Right.
And then that sweeping line and, you know, reading. And then I took to drums, studied with a local drum teacher in Mount Vernon, New York. And once I kind of broke out of the house and got to Brooklyn and Pratt Institute and studied some industrial design and that sort of thing, in around that period of time, I moved to the Lower East Side and studied briefly with Sonny Igo, who was Woody Herman's drummer.
Oh my God! Wait,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of I'm sorry just to cut you off there, but that, you know, I don't care if it's Jerry Granelli or all the old school drummers, they all talk about Igo, man. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, he had a lot of bass drum syncopation stuff. His son now is out here in Northern California playing his butt off on a lot of big band. He does the Buddy Rich big band thing. Very, very agile, very, very chop-worthy guy. And but in any case, I went from Sonny Igo to a guy who had a studio above Manny's Music in New York City called Styx Evans. And Styx's background was, I was really interested in funkiness and blues, and I was listening to, you know, all the best of Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And of course James Brown, and Styx had worked with James Brown and the Temptations. So I would sit and I'd go into his studio, and it would the odor of gin, etc., was really pervasive. You know, when I got in there, I was just this suburban
Holy
kid. You know?
shit.
And he wrote out some incredible drum parts to Horace Silver's Sister Sadie, for example.
Are you kidding me? Wait, no, you're telling me he was extrapolating off of that tune?
Yeah, he wrote what the drums would do. But yeah,
Right.
And you know, and to be a good reader, you really have to work on that. I think that's what you want to do. And so he was a teacher for a while, and then I got hooked up with Art Blakey's son, Sonny Blakey, and so I'd go to his loft and I'd study with him, kind of jazz stuff. And one lesson, he said, "Listen, I want you to hear this." So he got two speakers that I got in between the speakers, and he played. He said, "If you think my dad is great, check this guy out." And he played a Love Supreme with McCoy Tyner and
Wow. Elvin and
John
Jimmy Garrison,
and
yeah.
Elvin, and Elvin, right? And there was Elvin Jones, and I heard that, and I said, "Wow, that is really that is something else." And I lived on the Lower East, I lived on the Lower East Side, and I'd go past the 5 Spot, which was on St. Mark's Place, and there'd be like in the window, the drummer would be set up with his back to the picture, the glass window, and you could just watch. I would be watching Max Roach from the back, or there are other clubs too, Slugs on the Wave.
Yeah, I feel I'm like if you were down in the Lower East Side, then you were totally kicking it at Slugs with Charles Tolliver and Sam River. Those guys, I mean, your ears must have been wide open. I try to listen to the Blues Project stuff, and I feel like I felt like your bag, your vocabulary was huge, and maybe that's why it swung so hard. But I'm curious to go back to the cat who was reeking of gin, though. I mean, what was his Styx? Yeah. Can you talk? I'm always fascinated by this. I mean, can you talk about how? There was the 4 on the floor during the swing era, and then guys like Kenny Clark came in, and the feathering was going on. But the syncopation, how was he using the bass drum and the top of the kit to keep time?
I'd cymbal, right? A lot of cymbal,
right?
And snare, and less bass drum. The 4 on the floor thing, well, obviously was, that worked with the swing. I mean, to hear variations and syncopations from that, not so much like second line rhythm or New Orleans style. That's all about that syncopation and the clave beat. Clave beat being Bo Diddley's groove was the clave beat basically. sort of put onto tom-toms, or in the rhythm guitar. As far as sticks went, I didn't dig too deep into, he wasn't, like, drum teachers. I'll talk about drum teachers. There are a lot of tutorials online now. You could actually learn to do brain surgery. And, of course, you'd probably want to not use Craftsman tools. You might want to use Bosch or Makita, which is a higher quality if you're going to
of course.
Do that sort of thing. But really all kinds of drumming styles. I study, for example, the Brazilian tambourine. I've been learning to play that and play the drum set at the same time because I really like textures combined with a good strong pulse. And I'm also learning the baran, the Irish drum, which I think has just a fabulous sound when you really get it down. It's a whole different way of holding a stick, different way of moving your wrists. It's a real study. But along the way with sticks and with Sonny Blakey and with I wasn't getting the kind of musical school education I felt like I really would want. The Blues Project had a lot of success early on. We were very high on the food chain of success for a while there. And I always felt, do I really deserve this? I mean, I'm looking at these blues cats from Chicago who are making, $100 a night, $50. We were, making bigger money and the whole thing. It just didn't seem fair, I guess, or something.
That's really interesting. I want to be clear about something. Because Big Black, the conga player, I don't know if you ever ran into that cat, played with Dizzy and was part of the Thriller in Manila. He was a bebop conga player, but he would talk about being, Duke Ellington would be on the same bill as the Average White Band, and the Average White Band was getting paid a heck of a lot more than Duke's band. Were you on bills with the authentic blues cats, so you knew the payout was much bigger for White Cats than the actual original masters?
Well, in a sense, the Blues Project, when we were first getting organizing and we're going through lead singers and then finally winding up with Al Cooper and Danny and Steve being our main singers, along the way we were making, like $100 a week a piece, maybe, if we were lucky. We were playing every night at the Cafe Go-Go and just getting through, but evolving, And then when the Blues Bag happened, which was a series of blues, when a lot of Chicago blues players came through New York, and it was sort of like a mini club festival, the Blues Bag, and it was recorded live by a guy named Reese Hamill, who had an 8-track TAC set up in his Econo van, Ford Econoline van.
I love that. He was recording it out of his van. Those always have the best. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And so during these shows, we had a slot on the show, and then there was this sort of competition between the Blues Project and the Paul Butterfield Band, or I didn't really see it as a competition. I was really enamored with how specific their music was to Chicago blues. I mean, when you have a guy like Sam Lay on drums, and Jerome and Mike and Paul and
I'm just trying to figure out that's because it was a friendly competition, but it was Philip Wilson wasn't on drums. It was Sam Lay.
In New York, I believe it was Sam Lay, or if it wasn't Sam Lay, it would have been Panama Francis.
Oh my
or
God!
Freddie Bilo, but I think it was Sam. Otis Spann was a sweetheart. What a nice guy. I mean, I'd go there earlier and he'd be jamming and playing, and just, I'd sit and watch Howard Wolf perform, and this guy, he would sway from side to side, swing the whole room. You'd be mesmerized. It'd be like watching a huge metronome go back.
My
and
God.
forth. You're just, and the music was just so held together. The blue was so sweet. I thought. I mean, to me, when people really play together and they're all in the same room, so to speak, there's something that the whole is definitely greater than the sum of each part, right? You know, it really.
You're 100. No, 100. I just want to get back to this idea of the fact that they were just.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you know that you felt guilty? I guess I don't know what the right word is. The Jewish guilt or something, you know.
Well, well, look at the record business. You know, you hear stories that Chuck Berry sold, like the publishing to roll over Beethoven for $50 to art music or something.
Right.
$50, please, you know. And then did it ever turn around? Did he get that back?
That's
I don't
right.
know. But
right.
some folks made a lot of money off a lot of creative folks on different levels, and to this day it's happening. I mean, they're bootlegging stuff out of England. If you don't have it protected, you will not receive any residuals or anything, and that's happening. China, you know. So there's a lot of that still goes on for the artists, you know, and the writers. But I wasn't, you know, I didn't know the financial arrangements that Muddy Waters had, for example, with Howard Solomon at the Cafe Au Go-Go. He ran that club. You know about that club, right? You know that.
Well, I just know that Harvey, the guys I've interviewed, Densmore, Harvey Brooks, all rode through there, and everybody, sure, yeah.
Well, prior to Harvey going through there, and prior to Oscar Brown Jr., there was Lenny Bruce.
Oh,
and Lenny Bruce performed there and got busted in that club.
He got busted everywhere, man. The guy got arrested more times than Merle Haggard. So he got busted at the at Cafe Go-Go.
I think so, and I guess he lost his cabaret license to perform, I suppose. I guess that's
yeah.
But Howard Solomon, you know, had tapes of all of that. Howard has passed away. I think as is Sid Bernstein as well. But so we got. So I don't know exactly the numbers on that. I think, for example, I'll give you one interesting example of how things change. A friend of mine is a guy named Rich Kirsch from Chicago, and he played with John Lee Hooker for about 11 years. I lived with him, played with him, and toward the end, when John Lee wasn't doing well physically, he got an offer to play a festival in Europe, either himself or with his band, one show for $250,000. Okay, so things did change on a certain level with some of the artists. You know, other artists, you know, are kind of left in the dust and are in, you know, homeless, you know, in very dire straits. You know.
No, I mean, this is really important because one of the things it's funny, in my second interview with Barry Melton, I was asking him about geniuses that he knew that died broke, and
right.
and they're just, and I just want to be clear though that the original cat, the blues masters, when they would see white cats like yourself trying to play that music, they were inclusive about it, right? I mean, they didn't. There was no bad vibe from them. They got off. They were enjoying it, right? I mean, it wasn't. They appreciated it.
Here's a story. We would perform. Danny Cowell did a very, very heartfelt, deep arrangement of Two Trains Running, which was a tune by Muddy Waters tune.
Right.
And we were playing that tune at the Blues Bag, and I think after we played it, Danny met up with Muddy, and Muddy told him that he really dug that version.
Oh man, I mean,
but he's publishing or writing or however he got compensated. I hope, you know. I don't know for sure, but yeah.
Did you? I have to ask you this though, because the half note was cooking as well. With Jake Hanna was down there, and people were making like $5, $12 a week or something like that, But did you, one of the cats that I've connected with last year, done 3 interviews with, and he was a really heavy. Turned out to be the first drummer in Paul McCartney's Wings. Did you know Denny Sywell?
I didn't know him. I didn't know him. No.
Yeah, he was there. He was there for a hot. He talked about one time being at Pookie's Pub and seeing. It was basically Coltrane's quartet. I think Train had passed away, and Elvin was playing, and Denny's this cocky young drummer. He had played on like Kai Winding and J.J. Johnson album, and he was doing a lot of jingles, working with Gary McFarlane and stuff, and then so he's outside. He actually had the audacity. He said he went up to Elvin. He's like, can I? After the first set, he's like, can I sit in with you guys? And they were outside the club, and so in any event, Elvin said, yeah, absolutely. So they play a tune, and then Elvin gives him the sticks, and he goes up and he plays. He does pretty well, and then after the set, they're outside, and Elvin's like, man, you can play, you white mother, you're amazing, dude. They give him a big bear hug, and just like, and then all of a sudden, Denny sees this person walking down the street, and it's like pretty intimidating character, kind of scary looking actually, and Elvin didn't seem to care at all, and the guy's getting closer and closer to these guys, and Denny's like, Elvin, who is this? And then all of a sudden, the guy walks up, and he was totally homeless. It was Art Blakey.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was, and so Elvin obviously was like, he's like, well, this cat can really play, but the point is that, like, okay, going to the blues and in many ways the jazz life at your time growing up when you were a formidable cat, a young cat, they were playing their lives. They were playing their It was a hard scrabble existence, and I just wanted you to put yourself back there, knowing that you were clearly making records, you had, and you had opportunities, but you guys talk about, Cal making heartfelt renditions of muddy tunes. I mean, do you feel like you tried to be as authentic as possible to the music without becoming roadkill?
I think this, whenever my approach has been, even to this day, or back then, especially when I was younger and we were, sort of breaking ground, everything seemed to be new, right? Trailblazing. We were going through this forest of music and history of music and styles and creating what we thought was our very own, I mean, if you look at a tune like Flute Thing, Andy Colbert kind of evolved this, an echoplex, which, right now, I guess, looping systems are, what
That's
that
right.
is.
That's right. Yep.
And echoplex is like running tape through a couple of tape heads. And you could, record over yourself and kind of layer and create a bigger and bigger version of what you're doing. And he did that and created, he was classically trained, so he had sort of a longer form in his head, of movements, and dynamics of, say, a solo, for example. And so that's, he really brought to that tune, we took it from sort of an old schoolish kind of jazz groove to this more psychedelic or opened up. Certainly when I took my drum solo, I don't know that I counted out 136 bars of drum solo at the time, But I know this, that it was like a sort of it wasn't a race, but like in a relay race when you hand the baton to the next runner, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the way you hand it, in effect, helps them set up how they're going to go for it, how they're going to run. So you don't just drop the ball, you kind of, roll out of it with the cymbals and the smooth transition seamlessly into the next trip, a real voyage for the listener. And then we come back home when we play our the motif, back in, and the tune would wrap up. but I'm getting maybe off base here, but because you're
No, I just, you know what it is? It's like, my argument today is that,
Yeah. Oh, I know what it is.
you know, it's just
Yeah.
like, it's hard to sing about the blues when you're living in suburbia. You know, these cats were like
Well,
seriously scuffling, you know.
I think with Danny there was some true to life experience that he was relating to trains running and the concept of that, and to people, to relationships, to metaphorically, ideas about that in your one's life. I from when I would approach the stage, I would approach it like it's like a new day, a new tune, a new approach. We feel differently every day, right? Every day there's a little something, either an additional ache and pain
That's right.
as you get older, or just some emotional thing, or some memory, something that triggers something that changes your POV of your day, And so with me, it was like, just go for it with every tune, be sincere with it, honest with it, be with it, be in the moment of that thing, and don't just, throw out some fluff, And that's kind of how I do it now. Give it what you got. I mean, you just, otherwise, I don't know. Then there might be another approach to just getting by, but. At this stage of the game, I think, just for a moment, I'd like to interject.
Go ahead.
With that swing. I mean, I learned about swing. A lot of rock drummers just cannot get away from that vertical up and down rock and roll thing. I think the Stones really swing. I mean, Charlie Watts is a big band drummer, right?
Well, I mean, I heard it. I agree with you completely. Go ahead. Yeah, Charlie Watts swings really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about like Keith Richardson. He's like a total guitar horn part guy, right? I mean, it's a big part.
That's right.
And the whole thing. In terms of swinging, so some guys want to do rock. I don't really play rock per se. Like if somebody said play it that way, it's just a certain way to play it. John Bonham. Talk about rock. I mean, that guy was a swinging guy. I thought so.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Fabulous. So yeah, you have to have that. I think the dotted eighths or the triplets feel in your playing, and that's, I think, from African music and stuff like that. If you've listened to much of it, I listen to drums from North and South India. Latunji. I would attend these red diaper baby summer camps, and run by Quakers, and they were interracial, interdenominational co-ed, and I'd be the guy on the waterfront, and some of the visiting artists would be, Pete Seeger and Alatunji and his drums with passion. So I got an earful of that, and boy, did that get in there,
Wait, hold on. You saw that live?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Was this up in the Berkshires or something? Where was it?
It was Phoenicia, New York, Catskills.
Right, dude. Because there was a place called Randy Weston used to play there all the time, and Babatunji would play there all the time.
Yeah. There you go. Right, and there was Camp Hurley or Camp Woodland. There was Bucks Rock, and a few other. They were really little commie camps, little socialist, very idealistic points of view about fair share kind of stuff. Interesting.
I want to read you this. The guy that popped into my mind. Not that your styles are the same, but just. You lived in the Bronx, I believe, for a minute, or moved there at some point?
Well, I was born in the Bronx and moved to Yonkers.
Okay, so this this is from Karma to Peace. Do you ever run across that cat from Vanilla Fudge?
In Oakland. Yeah.
Okay, so
I didn't really know Carmen, but
this is what he said in our interview, and
heavy hitter.
yeah, I want you to I want you to just riff on this. He goes, most rock players can't play jazz. There's a few that can, like Steve Smith and Greg Bissonette. These guys can pretty much play anything. He goes, jazz rock is basically just an eighth note feel on whatever's going on mostly. You can translate it like that. Jazz as a whole has a dotted eighth and 16th bounce feel. Rock is based on an eighth note feel. That's one of the differences there. I grew up playing some jazz as a kid. I don't consider myself a great jazz player. With the jazz cymbal thing, there's a dotted eighth and a 16th feel that goes ding, digga, ding, digga, ding, digga, ding. Most of the jazz guys would play that. They have the hi-hat on 2 and 4, and they improvise between the snare and the bass drum. There's some jazz players like Tony Williams that varied off of that. Even Elvin Jones, those guys varied off of that ride cymbal. That ride cymbal thing might have been something more in the 40s and not experimental. When a lot of rock guys play rock, they play straight eighths on the hi-hat cymbal. Then there's the guys like myself. I go off of that. I don't like playing eighth notes all the time. I like to use the right hand as a melody thing. Put melody into the ride cymbal and just instead of a straight eighth note thing. Going back to the vertical versus horizontal, or you were talking, how talking to peeps out there, how, outside of academia, how would you break out of that I don't want to say it's a rut, but sort of that rigidity in your mind? I mean, you can woodshed all you want, but
Right.
what would you say about breaking out of that sort of linear mode of playing traps?
Well, there was a period of time when I got back to California in 1977. As the story goes, if this is the setup to this, and it relates to what you're talking about in terms of this style, and possibly an answer to that question.
Great.
Is I was looking with my first wife, who was pregnant. We were looking for a place to rent in Inverness, California, and we ran out of gas. It was a cul-de-sac. It was 10 o'clock at night. Dark. There was one light on at the house, so I must have pull myself together.
Right.
Knocked on the door at this hour, and the door opened like about 6 inches, and I could see through the door. There was a cymbal on a cymbal stand at an angle, and this African American guy answered the door. Right.
Oh.
So I said, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry to bother you at this hour, man, but I'm with my wife, and we ran out of gas. We're trying to. Is there a way I might be able to use your phone?" He said, "Yeah, come in." So I go inside, and my wife follows me in, and she's making a call. And in the background, I'm hearing heavy snoring. I mean, really serious. We all have experienced.
Oh yeah. No, I mean,
produced it or listened to it from somebody else.
This was on a different level.
Yeah, we're it's
Oh,
earth-shaking. It's an earthquake. This stuff. It's dangerous. It could be dangerous. And you figure if enough people in Northern California were snoring simultaneously, that could really throw off that San Andreas wall.
Yeah, right. You can just break right off.
We'd have a problem. Got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm hearing this, and I go. The guy's name was Chuck. First name Chuck. I said, What is that? What's that sound? He says, "Oh, I'm recording my wife snoring." I thought that was hysterical. But anyway, then he goes. I said, "Yeah, I'm working in a band called C Train, and he said, "Well, here's some sticks. Let me show me what you do." So I did some drum roll, traditional grip, whatever. He said, "Okay, listen, here's my card. I teach drums." I said, "Oh, okay, sure, Chuck Brown, percussion."
Huh.
So I held on to his card, and then I played played on that album with C Train, and I loved Richard Green. I mean, Richard's just a wonderful player.
Oh, amazing,
Wonderful
and
player.
just a beautiful cat too.
He is. He really is, and I wish I maybe could.
I'm gonna connect you guys. I'm gonna send you his contact info. You should reach out to him because he's not playing anymore.
Yeah. Well, might be due to a physical reason.
Yeah,
or
well,
just
he's kind of into the photography bag, but I mean, there was nobody doing anything close to what he was doing on the electric fiddle for some time.
And for Milton Rosenberg, who was doing the Spring Flings down in Venice Beach not too long ago.
Absolutely.
And she is, why I always forget her name, but she was a student of his learning to play blues violin. And her mother had been a girlfriend of Lenny Bruce. Her name eludes me, but she is a phenomenal player and singer. And I'll remember her name. I'll send it to you, because she's quite a wonderful. She's played with Sting. She's played at Radio City Music Hall, and she was just tuning up with her band prior to Barry and our band to playing in Venice. And I just to hear how she's extremely professional. It was great. But just
yeah, Chuck Brown. You got the card from Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck. Yeah, I got this card from Chuck. So I had one of the reasons I left C Train after the first album was that I felt it really lacked a certain pulse that I really wanted to play in and around. And after I had been like 10 feet from Al Jackson at the Monterey Pop Festival, backstage watching him play and hearing, Otis Redding and the Bar-Kays and Duck Dunn and Steve Kropp, the whole band, I became a believer. I wanted to play that. I wanted to go to Memphis. I wanted to play that stuff. The power of the horns with kicking with the drums. It was just got me.
Yeah, it was like Muscle Shoals and Stax.
Really, even to this day, it's just even a simple, jam with a simple set of drums with the Muscle Shoals, you kind of groove going on.
Oh,
it's just
magic.
It's just yeah, it is. It's like fresh baked bread from the oven. I don't know, but so I left C-Train, moved to Colorado with my first wife and baby and Irish wolfhounds and goats and organic gardening and farming, and I became a lumberjack of all things.
Well, that makes sense. This is the greatest story I've ever heard of. So you actually took a break from music for a minute, or were you just like?
I took a big break from music, and I stopped. I was surviving. I was in the world, in an environment I'd never lived in, and going, how the hell am I going to make any money?
Right.
and it was way up in the mountains, in the mountains of Colorado, about 5 miles from the Nederland Ranch, which I never went down to visit, but was there outside of Boulder. And one way or another, I think John Gregory, yes, he came out he had quit C-Train around the time I did. And he came out to Colorado, and they lived there, and we started doing some playing with him as the Thorn Lake Band. And then he left, and I was there, and I met a guy named Jerry Jimmerfield, who we had a band called Greased Lizard, and it was a total mushroom-eating band.
Do we have tapes of this stuff? I need to hear this immediately, dude.
I'll send you. I don't have recordings, I don't think, but I do have the drum skin that a wonderful artist painted for me.
Oh.
I did listen. This is what I did. I had the original Blues Project bass drum skin. I gave somebody in Santa Fe, and this guy gave me this painted skin. Now, that probably, if I was a collector, I would have been smart enough to get everybody in the band to sign that damn thing and at least hang it on my wall, But I didn't. But I do have this other skin. I'll send you a picture of it.
Oh, please. Yeah, Jimmerfield. So you were in this mushroom band. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a mushroom band, I'd say. Yeah, very psychedelic.
Yeah.
Eating psychedelics, the whole thing. And they had like a step band called Otis, and you drive across the Continental Divide with the Rocky Mountain altitude air blowing through the cab.
Oh, this is unreal, dude.
But with me going, how the hell did I get here? What's that? Maybe an arrest. Maybe an arrest would be in my future. Yeah,
right.
Fortunately not.
You've gone off the deep end.
However,
Yeah.
But thing is, Jake, that with so anyway, I travel. There are other places I lived, and finally I moved back to California in 1977. You might know the name.
I just want to also. This is so important. I just want to be clear. You took some time in Colorado in the 70s, but then your second child with your first wife, she was pregnant with your second child, and you ran into Chuck Brown. Is that right?
Well, my first wife, with my first child, is when she was pregnant. I ran into Chuck Brown. Then I left California.
Okay, so actually that was late 60s, right? 69, 70.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
Got it. Then you left. Okay, got it.
By 1970, I left Colorado and moved back to New York City with first child, wife, Irish Wolfhounds.
Right.
And
goats, sheep, yeah.
Lived north of. I lived in Peekskill, New York, and commuted to the city and rehearsed with Danny and the new version of the Blues Project. Of course, we recreated the band, and then we started adding members, trying to figure out the best way to do this. We had a great opportunity. Capitol Records gave us a 2-album deal. I can't say that I'm particularly proud of either one of those albums. There's some good cuts on them, but
I'm just sorry. I'm sorry, but "Personal Mercy" is my favorite tune of all time.
Oh man!
Yeah, I mean the drum break on that. I mean, whatever. I'm just getting hip to it actually, but I love it so much. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's nice of you to say that. I enjoyed writing it, and what I'm trying to do is sort of rewrite it and steal back the publishing.
Wait, you don't have you don't have publishing? You're credited as the songwriter on that.
As a songwriter, but the publishing was Beechwood Music, and
that's right.
It all became a BMI advance that we got to do this. It was with the Tin Drum Music was the publishing company we used for the tunes that we wrote for some of these records. And but the thing that I wanted to mention is that coming back to California in search of what I was really looking for was a drum teacher, but somebody who could teach me reading, and I wanted to learn how to read big band charts. That's what I thought. If I could play drums at fast tempos and read the bars and not get lost, that would be very cool. And if I could notate and transcribe like drums, right? Well, you used to take the Long Island Railroad, right?
Of course, all the time, yeah.
Right. Well, I was on the other railroad line out of Mount Vernon, New York, where it was the Stanford New Haven line.
No, it was the Metro North line. That was Metro North.
Well, Metro North now, I guess it's that now, yeah. But back then, I remember this, and this is something I've wanted to do, is when you sit on the train and the metronome on the track with the tracks, every length of track, wherever the lengths would be, there'd be a click, right?
Mm-hmm.
Clickety clack.
That's right.
If you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, to me, the metronome, because it was real consistent once the train got up to speed and stayed at that speed. Then you also had the chains that held onto the couplings of cars, and then you had, that was another sound, and they kind of swing back and forth and kind of randomly bang. And then you had the sound of the cars that would come together and come apart, right? That's another sound,
right.
lurching a little bit, depending on the elevation of the track, right? So what I wanted to do was take a contact mic and get onto one of those trains, if it's still getting some sound, record those sounds, all those sounds, a segment of those sounds, without people talking and footsteps. And then take that information and then transcribe it to a set of drums, right?
Whoa, that is deep,
right?
deep. Well, I mean, you also, the old Long Island Railroad it was so antiquated, they had these chains that would hold the cars together, so there was chains rattling, kind of a diaspora kind of feel to it as well.
Well, that was That right, exactly. That's what the chains that I was like speaking of. Those chains were on the Metro, the Stanford local.
Unbelievable.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you transcribe that, and the sign, the hi-hat is going to be, the bass drum would be maybe the sound, the deeper sound of the big cars bumping into each other, right? I mean,
Wow.
as one approach, you could pick your.
Wait, you just cut out for a second? Can you go through? Can you go through the different sounds and how it would compare with the kit?
Okay, metronome, hi-hat,
Right.
which is often used as a timekeeper.
Yep.
You know, consistent. That would be the seams on the rails, the consistency of the wheels, right? That sound. The backbeat or the snare, which might be more random to a point, would be the chains banging, those coupling things, right? And the bass drum would be the sound of the bigger sound of the cars, which would be have a deeper sound, maybe banging against each other, right? So bass drum, cars.
I love this. This is unbelievable.
Hi-hat, metronome, and snare chains could, you know, as you could always mix it up with drums, it could reverse it, change it, move it, you know, more, maybe the bass drum is just the timekeeper pounding away, right, straight up, maybe turn it into a rock feel, more eighth. But with the chains swinging, well, it would be interesting because you could have an eighth note feel like Conley was talking about, but incorporate a swing in the middle of that.
Exactly.
Really fucking great. Really great. But anyway, so I'll get back to.
By the way, I love the way your brain works, dude. I mean, you must be able to do like 5 things at once or something. I mean, you're like, your brain works like mine. We're telling one story, then we're reversing back to another. I still want to hear about, Chuck Brown's wife snoring. You know, it's unbelievable.
I was just kind of swinging back.
Yeah, swing back to that.
I meet up with Boots, and I say, Boots, do you know a guy around here who could, is really a great drum teacher? He goes, yeah, there's a guy named Chuck Brown. And I started, all of a sudden, the light bulb.
Yeah, the flash. The flash.
I met this. So I called up Chuck Brown. He says, look, I got a waiting list of hundreds of people. I can't, call me every week, see if I have a cancellation. So I did for about 4 months. I called him. And he finally did it. I went in, and I got to become one of a permanent student. I didn't have to call in. And he got me into his stick techniques, which a lot of people, it was inspired by a guy named Alan Dawson.
Oh, yeah.
From
Berkeley. A monster player, dude.
Yeah, really, really.
I mean, played with Booker Irvin a lot. Monster players.
And then also a guy named Moeller, the Moeller sticking technique. It's a lot to do with using fingers and using the fulcrum, the way you hold the sticks. It's a very, it definitely, for about a year, I dropped my sticks because it was just so different. And
wow.
He also, Chuck Brown had taught Michael Shreve, Dave Garibaldi, Terry Bozzio, numerous drummers who would come see him to get a tune-up. He'd watch how their foot was working on the foot pedals, and he was a great.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool, man. Yeah. The guy was a monster, Chuck Brown.
Yeah, Chuck Brown, and he played up to a point when he was about 21, and then he stopped playing and he just taught. He didn't, he had hundreds of students who worked with him, and a lot of his students who didn't have any, they only knew him as the background, would play. Okay, that's a Chuck Brown student. But wow. I had 17 years of playing in front of that, so I had my own, my own thing. I had my own personality maybe that way, and I could add the technique. Really was what it was, and he was great in terms of from the drummer's point of view. It's like guitar players, if they're really loud and they're playing very high up on the neck, the frequency is tighter, and it tends to, drummers, if they follow that, they may speed up.
That's right. That's right.
And so you have to be aware of that as a player and hang on, hold it down, really, really focus. But he talks about that because a lot of times guys in front, they're wanting to push forward, and if you go, so Chuck Brown, and so I went and worked with him over about 15 years in and out. I'd go on the road or I'd leave for 3 months, but I'd come back and still, work on his stuff. There's something for years have been trying to work on, Jake, that's when I saw Sam Lay play the first time when I was young, watching at was it Club 47 in Boston?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that was the place where the Rowan brothers got their start, and the jug band, Queskin, and all those. Yeah.
Well, he, and I watched him do like his double shuffle with his left hand, and play a tune like Mojo Workin', like a 2-beat tune, and with kind of the melody a little bit on the bell of the cymbal.
Totally. Oh yeah.
African feel. Ding 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 ding, and like the left hand doing this thing that a lot of country drummers do with 2 hands. They do the sound of a train, with 2 hands on the drum.
Right.
But he's doing that with 1 hand. So that double shuffle, is like for Good Morning Little Schoolgirl, Paul Butterfield style. I think he played that. He had a certain bounce to that way he played it, where you would enable you to be able to play it. You can't, if you could emulate that sound with just your wrist alone, it would be a lot of work. But if you let the stick do the work and control it, then you can really advance, and make that stuff happen. I was at a session. I walked in on a recording session of the Paul Butterfield Band when Paul Rothschild was recording them, and he would isolate the tracks. I'd hear Elvin Bishop's part, I'd hear Sam Lay's and Jerome Arnold and Mike Bloomfield and Mark Naflin and Paul's. Each one he would at different times. He was checking their EQ or whatever, and when he isolated the drums, it was like really cool. I would like to get a recording of those parts Sam was playing.
Oh, that's so unbelievable. Because this is an earlier the Butter Band that I'm I've connected with Buzzy Feet and
Mark.
And those cats. That was the one after it.
Oh yeah. Well, Rich Kirsch at one point put me on the phone with Sam Lay when Sam was he's in Chicago, and I said, Sam, man, you do this double shuffle thing. That's just always loved it. Think it's great. I said, is there any way, I could figure that out? Or he said, listen, you have to come here.
Yeah, right.
I'll show it to you.
Right.
Yeah, but until I could pony up some dough and go to Chicago for a few days, meet Sam, and run a tape machine. I don't know what to do, or listen to him do it. And I don't know if he's still in shape to do it. You know what I mean? It's like, who was it? Panama Francis eventually passed away, but he still had. I think Pete Sears was recording some music with him at one point, and he borrowed a hi-hat and a snare stand or something from me to do the recording.
Wait, did you say Pete Sears?
What's that?
You just said Pete.
Sears,
oh my dude. Roy. Honestly, man, when are you going to New York, man? Because I have to go home to get my kids right now. But we haven't even gotten to half of what I wanted to talk about.
Well, where are you? When are you going to New York?
No, you said you're going. You said you're going to New York, or no?
I'm going to New York. I'm going to New York after the cruising club. I'm going to the airport and hanging out and taking a plane out Tuesday very early.
Can we hop on the phone on Monday, but maybe not Monday, but maybe on the cell, like during the week sometime? I just would love to do part 2 as soon as possible.
I would say we can do either part two while I'm in New York.
Yeah.
We could do part two. We should just email each other or text. Texting's real.
Did you get my text? Did you get my text though?
I just did. I got it saying I'm on the.
I'm on. Okay, so yeah, let's just text back and forth and find, because I'm telling you, man, like I'm on a total trip right now, and I have to go back and figure out. We have to finish some stories, and then also there's just so much more to get to.
I haven't told you the Howlin' Wolf meets Roman Polanski story yet either.
No, dude, we're going to get to it. Listen, so I'll text you the next couple of days. How long are you going to be in New York for, by the way?
Till Sunday, till the 11th, till the 10th.
And you're going to be back at the cruising club? You back there?
Back at the every Monday. Yeah, I'll be there every Monday. Yeah. Are you going to be up this way again?
Yeah, I'm coming back to. I'm going to probably be there not this Monday, but I'll come back a week from Monday again. But I mean, we'll talk before. We'll do part two before then.
Okay. Well, we could do it. I would say chances are we do it while I'm in New York. That would be.
Yeah, no. We'll text back and forth, and we'll find a time, and I'll get this one up to you. I'll get this out to you as soon as. I had such a great time with you, man. It's funny. I saw Willie Reiser when I walked in. And I was like, I immediately thought it was you. I thought it was you. And I was like, I went up and shook his hand. I'm like, did you do a lot of work in the studios? He's like, no. I was like, what? No? Who is this guy? And so Barry and I are leaving the club. I'm like, I didn't even get a chance to see Roy, man. But man, you and Aguilar cooked. I'll send you some of those clips. I took some great stuff on Facebook of you guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a CD and I'll tell you that story when I see you. But yeah, let's. If you get to the club a little earlier, if you're coming there, I get there at about 5:45, and set the drums up and just kind of sit around for an hour.
It would be cool to do something. It would be cool to do something on video together. If you get there early, we could do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah, but no, I mean, we'll do. Listen, first things first. We'll text the next couple of days and find a time to do part two on the radio this week.
I got to tell you, I started listening to some, and I listened to Cindy Blackwell.
Blackman,
right?
Cindy Blackman, yeah.
Blackman, right. Fabulous. I love her.
I'm going to send you some I was going to send it to you last night, but I said, I want him to just go in not knowing anything. I'm going to send you a few interviews I want you to enjoy that you can listen to. You are going to have this is a treasure trove of enlightenment, even for the cats of your generation. So I'll send some stuff to you, and then, yeah, much love to you, man. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. Take care, buddy. Thanks. Yeah, bye-bye.
Yeah,
bye. Heavy day here on the Jake Feinberg Show. That we just heard from Roy Blumenfeld, the drummer from the Blues Project, among other things. And then before that, the legendary pianist Art Maddox. We will be back next week with a bevy of guests, including Mr. Blumenfeld Part 2. Until then, this is the Jake Feinberg Show on Power Talk 1210.